After my son passed away, one day I became estranged from my daughter-in-law and granddaughter. I couldn't believe my eyes. On a snowy winter evening, my granddaughter was trembling alone in the yard. In a panic, I rushed her into the bath.
The bath isn't warm.
My husband and I were furious at what had happened. My name is Sophia. I am a 65-year-old housewife who feels the effects of aging. My 67-year-old husband has thinning hair and has taken up scalp care as a hobby since retiring. I'm not sure if I can call it a hobby, but he seems to be enjoying it, so I leave him be. We had one son, Benjamin. Raising him was tough, and we felt a great loneliness when our well-raised son left the nest. He got married at 28 and was living happily with his children when he tragically passed away in an accident at 35. It was a sudden and shocking departure. At the funeral, our spirits were lifted by our young granddaughter, Emma.
Grandma, are you okay?
Though only 5 years old, she seemed to vaguely understand her father's absence, her eyes swollen with tears. I held her tightly and resolved to protect this child, the last memento of my son, no matter what. My daughter-in-law, Isabella, remained composed. She might have been crying behind the scenes, but I never knew. I just couldn't get along with her. Even when she visited our home with her family, there was hardly any conversation. She'd just fiddle with her phone alone. Her habit of ignoring us made me uneasy at times. But I figured it was the sign of the times and resigned myself to it. I didn't want to strain the relationship between us and our son's family by saying too much. I couldn't recall having a decent conversation with her. But life alone would surely be tough for her from now on. After the funeral, I said to her, "If you ever need help, just let us know." Isabella, 32, had lost her parents early and had no siblings. It must have been tough not having her parents' home to rely on. I worried that she would avoid contact with us after my son's passing. But with a granddaughter in the picture, we couldn't just turn a blind eye. No matter who she was the woman my son loved and married. It was only natural for me to want to help. But Isabella responded coldly.
"I'm fine. I don't need your help. I can manage on my own."
"But what about Emma?"
"Emma will be fine. Are you suggesting I'm after my husband's inheritance?"
"No, of course not. My son's inheritance is crucial for your livelihood. Then stay out of it." This lack of friendliness left me feeling deeply regretful about my concerns. My son's house is a 10-minute bus ride from ours. Not too far, but not exactly close either. Both my husband and I are unemployed and have time on our hands, so we'd gladly help with household chores or childcare if needed. But, fearing it would be a nuisance to intrude without being asked, we didn't visit for 6 months after our son's passing. When I finally mustered the courage to contact her, she reluctantly answered the phone. "Isabella, it's been a while. How have you been?"
"I'm busy with work and childcare."
Her sudden stern tone nearly discouraged me. But I gathered my courage and asked what I wanted to know. "Is Emma doing well? If it's too much, I can take care of her occasionally."
"Then take her next weekend."
Really?" I was taken aback by her request and then abruptly hung up. I guess she only wants to talk about business. Oh well, I'm looking forward to seeing my granddaughter after so long. I'll eagerly await the weekend. And on the weekend, Emma came with Isabella. "Welcome, both of you. It's been a while." Come on in.
Oh, I have work now. So I'll leave. I'll pick up Emma tonight.
With just those words, she left. Working on a Sunday must be tough. Emma chimed in.
It's not work.
With a downcast expression, I asked what was wrong.
Mom isn't working. She's always out having fun.
What? Always? I thought she had a job.
Mom seems to work part-time while Emma's at kindergarten, but most of the time, she's just playing. The other day, she smelled like alcohol when she came to pick me up from kindergarten.
What? Working at night with alcohol might be one thing, but kindergarten pickup is in the evening. So, drinking during the day doesn't seem like work.
When we got home, there were empty alcohol cans everywhere.
What? Drinking during the day? Maybe she's still grappling with the shock of losing her son. I felt regret for not supporting her more. But before I could dwell on it, Emma said,
There was a strange man, but he left when he saw Emma.
What? Does that mean Isabella was drinking with some man at home? It's been 6 months since my son passed away. Well, if she's quick to move on, it's not surprising if she's found a new lover. She's still young, after all. As long as she doesn't upset my granddaughter, I guess anything goes. But clearly, my granddaughter looks unhappy.
Because of that man, Mom. No, Mom never did anything from the start. She never did any housework, even when Dad was alive.
What? I was surprised to hear this for the first time. I'd never heard anything like that from my son. Mom, you never did anything?
Yeah. Dad always did the cleaning, laundry, and everything when Dad came home from work. He'd buy or make dinner for us.
What? Was that so? Perhaps my son's marriage was already falling apart. Was my granddaughter the only thing keeping them together? Now, I can't ask my son for the truth, and Isabella probably won't tell me. I see. Hey, Emma.
What, Grandma?
If you ever have any trouble, tell Grandma anything. I'll help you anytime.
Okay.
My heart swelled with tears as my granddaughter, who had seemed lonely in the presence of her mother, now smiled happily. However, I never got to see my granddaughter again after that. Because I couldn't reach Isabella. She occasionally picked up the phone, but always with an annoyed attitude.
Both Emma and I are doing well. So please leave us alone.
And she hung up. I refrained from visiting out of consideration, and before I knew it, 2.5 years had passed. It had been 3 years since my son passed away. During that time, my granddaughter entered elementary school. I sent her a congratulatory gift, and in return, I received a photo from her entrance ceremony. In the photo, my granddaughter wore a backpack, smiling shyly. I was glad she looked well, but something about it bothered me.
She seems embarrassed or nervous. She looks complex.
Certainly. Starting school must bring a mix of expectations and anxieties, so it's natural to look complex. But it seems a bit different. Unable to pinpoint the source of discomfort, 3 years have passed since my son's passing. Becoming increasingly worried, I finally reached Isabella on the phone. Can I meet Emma?
I told you, I'm busy.
We'll come to pick her up for the weekend, even just for a sleepover.
Emma is already 8 years old. She doesn't need that. Can you please stop contacting us? It's annoying.
She hung up again with her usual cold response. My anxiety grew even larger. Is my granddaughter okay? Is she having a good time? With her attitude, I can't imagine a happy situation. Hey, would you like to go meet them once? Even if it inconveniences her, I'll leave right away if I see her looking well. So when I suggested this to my husband, he nodded and said, sure. He is reserved, but I know he's worried about our granddaughter deep down. Because we're a couple. Maybe my son's marriage wasn't like that. Thinking about it makes me lonely. Glancing at the photo of my son in the room, I decided to visit Isabella's place next weekend. However, we ended up reuniting with our granddaughter before the weekend arrived. It's getting cold tonight, I said, shivering as I looked outside the window. It feels closer when it's cold. I turned on the heating and headed to the hallway towards the bathroom. As I glanced outside from the glass door facing the garden. What? I exclaimed loudly and opened the glass door. In the snowy yard, I saw a figure that shouldn't be there. And it was a very small child-sized figure. Despite it being nighttime, seeing the child standing in the bright snowy yard, I hurriedly put on sandals and rushed over. Emma? Yes, it was indeed my granddaughter Emma. I hadn't seen her in over 2 years. She had grown taller but was very thin. What's wrong? Did something happen? Why didn't you ring the doorbell? What would you have planned if I hadn't noticed you? I started to scold, but there was no time for that. I quickly took off my coat. Oh, you're freezing. How long have you been out here? Come inside. That's good. Go take a bath.
Okay.
My granddaughter, trembling uncontrollably, nodded with chattering teeth. In this difficult situation where the conversation was difficult, tears threatened to well up, but I brought her inside to warm her up.
Huh, Emma?
My husband, who had just finished bathing, looked surprised at our granddaughter. Quickly, get a towel and change your clothes.
Sure.
Even if he didn't understand the situation, he must have realized it was serious. He hurriedly ran off. We had spare clothes for when Emma stayed over. But considering they were prepared a while ago, they might be a bit small, but it was better than nothing. Now, go ahead and take a bath. Can you manage alone? The changing room was warm from him having just been there. She visibly relaxed as she nodded and went into the bathroom. I can't believe it. No other words came out. The clothes my granddaughter wore were tattered and dirty. And they were too small. After she finished her bath, I had warm milk ready for her. After a while, when she came out of the bath, her complexion looked better, and I felt relieved.
Thank you, Grandma, Grandpa. I got scared.
It was Grandma who was surprised. You came so suddenly. What surprised Emma?
The bath isn't cold, Grandma.
Huh? What is she talking about? The bath isn't cold? Well, of course not. Cold baths. They might have cold water in public baths next to saunas, but normal households don't have cold baths. In summer, some people might use a pool instead, but that's a pool, not a bath. especially in this midwinter. There shouldn't be a cold bath. Why are you saying that?
Because we always had cold water at home.
Huh?
Mom says we can't use hot water. We've been wiping with wet towels in cold water. Even in summer, she says we can't use anything but water.
What?
Mom doesn't come home much. Sometimes she leaves food when she does, but mostly just leaves money and says, buy it yourself. She says we can't be extravagant because there's no money, and we rarely buy clothes. She never comes to parent-teacher meetings. She hasn't taken a bath in a long time, just wipes with cold water. That's normal, she says.
What is that?
Finally, my husband shouted. He had been silently listening to our granddaughter, but he couldn't contain his anger. I was speechless too. I knew being a single mother was tough, but this was beyond what I imagined.
Recently, there's always an unknown man at home.
What?
But he says I'm a nuisance, so Mom tells me to leave.
What did you say? I couldn't help but shout. It seems Isabella is drowning in men and neglecting her daughter Emma. And to top it off, she's kicking her out in the middle of winter. As I saw earlier, my granddaughter wore sandals in the cold, ones I recognized from the 100-yen shop. Probably unable to buy sneakers either. Cutting back on food or something, my granddaughter must have purchased them herself. Her clothes were dirty and too small, so the story of not being able to buy them seems true.
I had nowhere to go, so I relied on my memory to come here. But I thought I might be a bother on a night like this, so I peeked inside from the garden.
What a situation. I was at a loss for words. My granddaughter is only 8 years old. To think she could think and act like this at 8 is amazing. Usually, this would be admirable, but tears overflow at the thought of a child being so desperate.
Understood.
He said quietly in a low voice. I understood. He was angry.
Emma, stay here with us. You'll have to change schools, but it'll be okay. You're strong. You'll adapt quickly to the new environment.
Here? What about Mom?
Don't worry about anything, Emma. You'll be happy with us.
Okay.
No matter how rudely treated, a child always longs for their parents. Especially after losing a father, the mother is more important than anything. Wanting to be loved is natural. Wanting to be together is ordinary. But this situation is neither natural nor ordinary. Even if it's someone my son loved, I will never forgive this. We agreed as a couple. The next day, my husband stormed into their house. I couldn't go because I was with Emma, but he told me what happened when he returned. Isabella was there when he arrived, and my husband forcefully entered the house.
Hey, don't just barge in like that.
I wouldn't enter a dump like this. I can't even enter.
My husband stopped at the entrance and turned to Isabella.
You've done quite a lot to Emma, huh? And kicking her out in midwinter. Do you understand that this is tantamount to a crime?
Oh, come on. I just told her to leave because she was bothering me. I never said she couldn't come back.
Do you think an 8-year-old understands that kind of thing?
She remained defiant despite the scolding. After arguing with my husband, Isabella called out a man. Seeing him, he seemed annoyed and left.
She was thrilled when I mentioned raising Emma here.
He said with a bitter expression. It seems she no longer has maternal instincts. And when he was about to leave, Isabella said,
"Oh well, it's cold. Time for a bath."
He saw her flip the remote switch, so he unplugged the water heater outside. Naturally, there was no hot water, just cold water. My husband, who had been observing from outside for a while, returned after hearing Isabella scream, and hearing that.
"It's so cold."
So, we got Isabella's permission. We'll proceed with various procedures through the lawyer we're relying on.
That sounds good. I nodded and looked at my granddaughter. Seeing her looking anxious, I patted her head to reassure her. Suddenly, my granddaughter burst into tears. What's wrong? Even so, is she crying because she wants to be by her mother's side after all? I hurriedly asked, and she replied,
Getting my head patted is the first time since Dad left. I'm happy.
Those words tightened my chest again. Do you still like Dad? To my question, my granddaughter nodded tearfully.
I want to see him.
What about Mom? There was no immediate response to that question. But after a while, she said, I don't like her.
Ever since Dad left, Mom has hardly been at home. I often wonder if she's my mom. She never patted my head or hugged me. She's so different from my friends' moms. But when Dad was here, he hugged me a lot, so I was okay. But now...
Unable to bear it, I hugged her tightly.
I miss Dad.
Yeah, I know. Grandma misses him too. I continued to hold on to my granddaughter, who longed for her father, and cried. After that, the three of us started our life together. Despite the initial confusion from changing schools, she gradually settled down, and within a month, she became completely lively again. Her complexion improved, and she started to gain a little weight. She's still thin, but I think as long as we take it slow, she'll regain her health. Before we knew it, 3 months had passed living together. One day during dinner, we heard the doorbell ringing. Since it's an old house, there's no intercom. I headed towards the door thinking, who could it be? Then I heard a voice shouting, "Help!" I was surprised. Could someone have been attacked and run here for help? But there was something familiar about that voice. Could it be Isabella?
Yes. Hurry, open up.
Sure enough, when I opened the door, there stood Isabella with a pale face. What's wrong?
I need help. I have no money.
Huh? What's going on? My husband also came out.
I'm getting remarried.
I see. So why the cry for help?
But he has debts. And I can't marry him unless I pay them.
Oh. I see, it's about that.
I've already given up all my late husband's inheritance and all my savings. But it's still not enough. So please lend me some money. Because of the procedures you handled, I'm not getting child benefits anymore. Please help.
It's impossible. We're also living off pensions.
You can't wish for your granddaughter's happiness but not for your son's wife's happiness?
That's something a mother who truly loves her daughter would say. Not someone sacrificing her daughter for her selfish desires.
His words made Isabella glare at him angrily. Ignoring her gaze, he took out a large envelope.
I conducted a little investigation.
Huh. An investigation?
Yes. I investigated the man for Isabella's sake.
What?
She was surprised. And so was I.
Well, I found out a few things.
Saying that he showed her the investigation results.
What is this?
Well, it seems like a kind of marriage scam. He's quite a shady man.
That can't be true.
I'm not familiar with the underworld, but peering at the documents from the side, I could sense something was off. In other words, the man was using Isabella as a benefactor. The date of the investigation results was quite some time ago. So, despite claiming it's for Isabella's happiness, it's a lie. If we had known, we should have told her earlier, but we didn't.
Before you talk about marriage, make sure you don't get into debt.
She fell silent at my husband's words. Could it be?
I already did it.
Oh dear.
They said it wasn't enough, so I even sold the house.
What? Is this man really that charming? Perhaps now she feels she can't turn back.
But they said I can't get married without money. I don't even have enough for living expenses. Paying rent for this rundown apartment is tough. Please, I'm begging you, help me.
Even with all that said, my granddaughter, rubbing her sleepy eyes, came out.
Mom?
Emma, help me.
Isabella, eager to rush towards Emma, instead hurriedly hid behind my husband.
I was wrong, Mom. I'll break up with him. Let's live together from now on.
Then you'll get child benefits, won't you?
Yes, yes. And I'll use that to find a new man again. Oh.
Oops, not quite. Isabella easily fell into the trap set by him. That's why she's so easily deceived by men.
Enough. You're unfit to be a mother. We'll take care of Emma with love and care.
But Emma wants to be with her mom, right?
My granddaughter, seeing her mother desperately cling, tilted her head in thought. For a moment, she looked behind her. In the living room ahead, there's a picture of her son hanging on the wall. I don't know if my granddaughter noticed it. But when she looked back at Isabella, her eyes were filled with determination.
I want Dad.
Huh.
I have lots of memories with Dad. I want to live in this house. I don't like Mom. I don't want to be with her.
Are you abandoning Mom?
I don't understand that. I'm sleepy. I'm going to bed.
Emma.
Bye, Mom.
With a yawn, my granddaughter returned to her room without looking back. Isabella stood there dumbfounded, her head hanging low.
Go home. Don't ever come back here again.
She left in a daze, without arguing against his words. After that, she disappeared from the apartment. Whether she followed that man or ran away from debt collectors, I don't know. All I know is that I probably won't ever see her again. My young granddaughter may not fully understand yet, but she doesn't seem to feel lonely without her mother. She smiles every day, which makes both me and him happy. When I go to the other side, there's a lot to report to our son, right, dear? When I said that to him, he replied,
Yeah.
Hearing this, Emma said,
No, you can't go yet. You have to stay healthy until I get married and have kids.
That's right. We still need to stay healthy and live a long life. I silently spoke to my son in my heart, asking him to watch over us and Emma from heaven. I felt like the sun in the photo was smiling. How was this story for you? Please subscribe to the channel as well. Well then, let's meet again in the next video.